That may be on when we get a bill.
That's right, I didn't update my agenda.
Smallest board we've ever.
Good morning, folks. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for September 27th. It is 8:30 in the morning. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda today?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to note the agenda, or the item rather, concerning the EDA budget. We're going to request that be tabled to October 11th. There were some questions that came up about that budget request, and we're going to be meeting with the Finance Committee of the EDA Board to talk about those issues and try to get them sorted out prior to October 11th.
Very good. So I understand item 7B will be tabled today.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Administrator, we do need to approve one by September 30th, even if it's going to be adjusted later. I have to report that to the state.
Okay.
Sorry. And I sent you an email on that yesterday, but I discovered at 4:30 yesterday afternoon that no email that I sent yesterday went through. They went through at 8:23 this morning, so apologies for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll have to sort through that.
You ponder that for a little bit, and when we get to the item, we'll have a little further discussion to
And-
decide whether we're tabling or
Okay.
having discussion.
And I would invite Commissioner Hawkins also to kind of let us know how you'd like to handle that, because she brought some questions up. They're very good questions. I think they need to be addressed before the board moves forward, but I understand the timing issue too, so.
Okay.
And it's a proposed tentative, and they have the ability, or we have the ability to move that one up later
Okay,
if needed, not like our own, so.
okay.
So for the time being, it sounds like the item will remain on the
I
agenda for
guess
today.
that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about the confusion.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Support.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. At this point, we are open for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward, sign in, and give public comment today? Anyone for public comment? Very good. We will close the public comment period. And is there anything from the consent agenda that anyone would like to hold today? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve as a whole?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? The consent agenda is approved. Our next up is, our sheriff is here to have a discussion about a boat and water grant. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. I would like to apologize first for the late addition to this, to the agenda. We completely dropped the ball on this one. We were supposed to have this, this grant submission done, I don't know, a month or so ago, and it slipped by. But anyhow, this is the state boat and water grant. It's a grant we receive each year. It's for education, enforcement, equipment. We use it for the sheriff's office, and we also use the funds for search and rescue if they need equipment for their vessels. It's a 2-year grant. It's in the amount of $14,000 some dollars, and so that's the amount we get. We in the past have used it for watercraft, for life jackets, for ropes, whatever we can justify using it for for boat and water patrol or education, excuse me, in Cook County. So that's what this is for, and I was notified that we are late in our submission, and I looked into it, and I thought it had been done already. It had not been done, so I apologize. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Did this get into your budget then?
Excuse me?
So even though you didn't submit the grant at the right time and you expected it, was it in your budget?
No. No, this is for the 2022 grant. We haven't even really used it because we've been shorthanded this summer. And this grant basically is for anything over and above patrol, you know, for the deputies to use. And then if we have to backfill, like I said, search and rescue funds with it, then we can do that.
So you didn't spend anything over in
No.
22?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you.
Shirley.
Thanks for bringing this forward to us now. I think it's really important now that the Coast Guard is pulled out, and I believe you're working on another topic too on that, so that we'll hear from that later. But as far as having this, I think it's needed, and glad you had found out that you needed to submit an ASP.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 boat water and grant for the amount of $14,943.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our Highway Department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think first we have on there is our, it's a joint powers agreement with Soil and Water. In the short of it, what it is, typically with these joint power agreements, and especially when it's with somebody who's, just kind of a different jurisdiction, is just it spells out who does what. We enter into a partnership together for a project. And so in this case, it's the Fifth Avenue West project, and what was really great is we've partnered with Soil and Water in the past on various other projects, culvert replacements, and even into the future, we're looking at things that we can do together. And this one was an opportunity where, redoing Fifth Avenue, we're ripping up the whole road. And so it's a unique opportunity to kind of say, well, what can we do better? And one of those was, kind of addressing the runoff issues that are seen on Fifth Avenue. Any of us that have been here, you guys see it, courthouse, it's right there. That water, hauls butt down the road. And so, a lot of sediment, a lot of runoff ends up in Lake Superior. And so we've been exploring different avenues of, how can we either prevent it or mitigate it, the best we can. And one of those avenues, we've kind of settled on is, what are they called? Vaults, for lack of a better term. The acronym is SAFL-BAFL. It has a wonderful little name. St. Anthony Falls Laboratory Baffle System. So basically, it's a big vault in the ground. Water flows into it. It hits this thing, slows down the water. The vault fills up with water, but that allows sediment and particulates to kind of settle out, and then the water exits. And so what that requires is a little extra maintenance on our end of vacuuming out those vaults 2 or 3 times a year. Maybe that might be too much, but a couple times a year. But it is they're effective. They're effective, methods to kind of reduce sediment loading. And it's especially effective too up here. Duluth does it a lot, where we have bedrock so close to the surface. So we can't infiltrate. The water can't percolate through the ground and just go back into the system. We did some borings recently on Fifth Avenue here and around the courthouse, and the bedrock was a lot shallower than we thought it was. There's a couple spots where it's 10 feet down, which is great. That's where we're going to kind of try and incorporate some of these. But the vast majority of the locations, it was anywhere from 3 to 5 feet underground, which isn't very deep. And so it's very expensive to blast. And so, anywho's, I digress. What this is a grant that Soil and Water obtained for $180,000 to help go towards the cost of those vault systems. Basically, they'll help administer the grant. We monitor construction and install them. Pretty standard thing. So, if you guys have any questions, feel free. Let me know.
Any questions?
How deep are the vaults? So
It varies in size, so we're working on the site. You can kind of make them however you want, but they'll be, we're gonna make them as big as we can. And so, you know, it could be something, I think I saw an example of one that was, I think it was 8 feet wide, 12 feet long, and 6 feet deep. So they can be big, and it wouldn't just be one, you know, we could put basically as many as we can fit. Cost obviously becomes a thing. And so, you know, this grant will cover $180,000, and then we would cover through our construction funds, you know, whatever else we needed to cover. So, but anyways, they're sized accordingly, and that's what our consultant is working on figuring out right now.
So there will be blasting required to install these?
I don't think so, no, because there are some locations where that bedrock, like I was saying, was 9 feet down, 10 feet down. So where we have space to fit one of these. So if we can't make it as deep as we want, we could make it wider or longer, you know, something like that.
Robbie, are these poured in place, or how? Are they
No, I
prefab?
think they're prefab, and I think it's something that gets, like we say, we want something a certain size, it gets made and then dropped in.
Gotcha.
Is my understanding. Yeah, they're big.
Other questions? Do we have the equipment to do the vacuuming when needed?
So there's kind of two avenues we can, the city of Grand Marais, and they have a vacuum truck,
Okay.
and so they've kind of offered that. We're also partnering with the city of Grand Marais on Fifth Avenue, obviously, while they revamp kind of their stormwater stuff. And so one avenue is we can, you know, kind of work with them on vacuuming these out. I know they do that in some of our catch basins now. Another avenue is, again, working with Soil and Water. It sounds like there's grants that exist to purchase a vacuum truck.
Okay.
And so an option might be for us to procure a vacuum truck, and then that would just be added to our maintenance duties, I guess.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you. Just for the public to understand, that's the street out here, right?
Correct.
Fifth
Yeah,
Avenue,
Fifth
and it
Avenue.
goes from 61 all the way up to
7.
Gunflint? 7.
Yeah, just up to, well, a little past 7, it'll go through that intersection. If you guys remember when we had the stoplight up there, when you could actually go through it at about 30 miles an hour, and that nasty BMX jump that you would hit. Yeah, so we extended the project to get through that intersection, so that gets smoothed out. But yeah, so it doesn't go all the way to the Gunflint, it's just through that intersection.
Is there an anticipated time to work on this?
The construction project? Yeah, so next June. So June 2023 is probably when we'll start, and then that construction season. I don't know how long the project would take. I would anticipate most of the summer. It's a big project. You know, we'll have, you know, we had a public meeting, oh boy, July, I think, or August, I can't remember. But we had a really good turnout here, and we kind of had the maps up and stuff, and that was incorporating everybody's comments that they could draw on and stuff. I don't know if we have another one scheduled or not, because I think that was kind of the, you know, I think that was the second or third one we had where it was like comments incorporated. But yeah, anyway, summer of 2023.
Okay, good.
Any other questions or comments? All right. And do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the joint powers agreement with Soil and Water Conservation District for CSAH 15 reconstruction project.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Next item.
I think next we have the truck, and I'll actually turn it over to Matt because he did such a wonderful job talking about it about a week ago.
Matt's the truck guy.
Yeah, so this is a proposal to add a 3/4 ton either GMC or Chevy to the maintenance fleet of the Cook County Highway Department. And that's to allow an extra truck to fulfill the engineering requirements on the engineering side of the Cook County Highway Department. So currently, we have 27 drivers and we have 14 vehicles, and the engineering department is sharing a vehicle. We have 4 people in the field and 3 trucks to support them.
And as I recall from one of our previous meetings, that this year we're using the engineers to go out and do more observations, in-field activities, that type of thing. So the vehicle, having a vehicle for them would be pretty important. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the purchase of the truck? No? And this was an item that was in your budget for this year, or how are we going to?
In the absence of Lisa, I'll try to explain that this is not increasing our levy. It is just moving money around within the budget to make it possible.
So from your reserve fund? And
Right.
Yes.
So what we.
No. Oh, you're taking it from another line item?
Yeah, so what we
Got it.
did, in our first iteration for the budget, is we had allocated, we wanted to create a kind of a county road construction savings account.
Yes.
If you recall, right now it's 0. And so we wanted to start, increasing that. So we had initially started with, I think it was like 150,000 allocated to that. By the time the second round of iterations of budget things came about is when we were kind of moving towards this truck.
Yep.
So what we did is reduced that dollar amount,
Okay.
added in the truck, and so you'll see overall, since we've started budget discussions, our number hasn't changed, unless insurance or something like that has changed.
Right.
But that's where it's coming from, is that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just want to note, this truck is being purchased off a state contract, and for
Oh, yeah.
members of the public who are listening, the cost on the state contract are well below what you would pay if you just walked onto a lot and tried to buy a pickup truck yourself. So we're taking advantage of that opportunity to get a really good deal on the truck.
Good.
Yeah, our truck, along with any piece of equipment we typically purchase, is off the state bid. I think what we're looking at for our truck in particular is just under 31, or I guess including licensing, sale, and tax and stuff, we're about $39,000 for a 3/4 ton. I wish we could all have that deal
Sure.
when purchasing vehicles, but we get it, so.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? We're ready for a motion.
I'll move that we purchase the 3/4 ton pickup from the state site.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Your pickup truck is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Moving on to Auditor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Revolving Loan Fund Committee met on September 14th with Great Gifts LLC, Emily Seeler, to discuss her request for $6,000 to purchase a new door, front door, 7 windows. This is subject to an EDA business grant and a bank loan from Grand Marais State Bank, and collateral of personal guarantee of the owner. The committee voted 7-0 unanimously in favor of the request, with the exception that Pat Campanero did not vote due to her involvement with helping the applicant with her application. And the county loan will help retain 5 part-time jobs. This is a business that's been in business for 36 years, most of that time in Lutzen, but they've since moved to Grand Marais, purchased a building here. This is a type of loan that sometimes could be funded by other sources, such as AEOA has a program, but that is not available at this time, and it's a real important need. Currently, they can't wait for another year. So the committee is recommending that because the size of the loan is so small and the length of the business and et cetera, that the board just accept personal guarantee as collateral and avoid the complications of mortgages, et cetera. So,
Very good. All right, questions for Brady? No questions?
No questions. I guess I just support a business who's been around for 36 years, and, you know, we miss having them in Lutzen, but they're here in Grand Marais, so that part is good, too.
Very good. All right. No further questions or comments. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we are up to item 7.
Well, we are just getting,
Administrator York.
we are getting through this agenda in record time.
Indeed
And
we
I'm-
are.
I'm glad for the sake of our guests that
Put
that
the
we're
brakes
making.
on?
Well, we'll see, we'll see. So I'd like to recognize some folks we have in the room with us this morning. I have, in the last several months, and actually since January, been talking with Fred Morris in the red vest. Next to him is Tom Ryder, and behind them, Carl Karst, all of whom are members of the Caribou Lake Property Owners Association. They've come forward with a request to establish a wake boat ban and a surfing ban on Caribou Lake out of concerns for water quality and shoreline erosion. And the letter that's attached to your agenda packet kind of details some of the concerns that they have about the use of wake boats on Caribou Lake. The action item this morning is to set a hearing for Tuesday, October 11th at 9 a.m. For the purpose of receiving public comments on the proposal to ban wake boats and wake boat surfing on Caribou Lake. And at this point, I would invite Mr. Morris and Ryder or anyone else who'd like to kind of talk about the request to come up and speak if you'd like to. It's not required, but if you want to talk, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize one thing that.
And sir, if you would come up to the microphone,
okay.
that'd be great.
For those that are listening online.
Yeah, sorry.
Slow but sure.
Oh, no, take your time. As you heard, we're running quite a bit ahead of schedule, so we have nothing but time.
You'll be back on time now.
Nah.
So I wanted to make sure that we're clear about what we are requesting. It's very narrow. It isn't a restriction on water skiing or tubing. It isn't a restriction on power boats. It isn't a restriction on horsepower on the lake. It is simply a very narrow restriction on the sport of wake surfing, which requires a boat that generates a 3 to 5 foot wave so that a person who is untethered from the boat can actually surf on the wake of the boat, can surf behind the boat on the wake that the boat generates. And that sport requires a boat that will take on a couple of thousands of gallons of pounds of water to lower the boat down into the lake so that when it proceeds at 12 to 15 miles an hour, it creates this big wake. That's all we're seeking to ban from Caribou Lake. It isn't broad at all. It's a very narrowly constructed request. And we've submitted, I think you've probably all seen it, a submission that has quite a bit of research that has been performed by various states and in Canada, all addressing some of the concerns that are raised by wake surfing on lakes like Caribou, which are generally fairly shallow lakes. And as I pointed out in our submission, aren't big, wide open bodies of water. Caribou really is functionally the equivalent of 4 smaller lakes. And that's what we're looking to do. There are lakes where wake surfing would be appropriate. we believe that wake surfing would not be appropriate on Caribou because of the destruction, potential destruction.
Very good. Questions? Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I attended the Caribou Lake Association meetings. They meet twice, Memorial Weekend and Labor Day weekend. And so this was a new terminology for me, a wake boat situation that they're looking at out there. So my question to you would be, how would this be advertised so folks would know that this is not possible to do?
The best way, and I think the only way, well, there could be a couple of ways, but the best way to do it officially would be to have a sign at the public landing that makes it clear that wake surfing is not permitted on Caribou Lake. Otherwise, we could ask realtors who rent out Airbnb properties on Caribou Lake to make it clear that wake surfing is not allowed on the lake. But I think the best way to do it is signage at the public landing, which is where people put their boats in and take them out. That would be the principal way. The other way is, as I think you saw in our submission, we have signatures, and we've had some additional signatures. So we have signatures from about 75% of the private landowners on the lake. The other way to do it, of course, is for the private landowners to know that wake surfing is not allowed on the lake. And I think probably everybody would know that because, again, we've got 75% of the people that have signed on to this, so most of the private owners already know that we're seeking to do it and support it. So I think signage, and then it's simply distribution of the prohibition among owners.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please.
Thank you. I learned a lot from reading all the information you submitted, so I appreciate that. I want to ask a question about the petition and the form that was submitted. There's a far right column and it has like P2 or asterisk or slash, or it's empty. How am I supposed to, how should I interpret that as far as signatures approval?
The person that created the document
Okay.
is here.
It is confusing. I assume I should speak up here?
That would be
There's a
great.
second microphone over here.
And if you can give your name and address,
Yeah,
too, that'd be
okey-doke.
great.
Great.
I'm Julie Bittinger. I live at 133 Sawmill Drive on Caribou Lake in Lutsen. And I took the master list that, I'm on the board of the Caribou Lake Association, and I took our master list, I'm the secretary, which includes everybody in the watershed. But we figured for this petition, we would just want to petition the lake property owners on the lake shore because they're the most involved. We have, people like that live on Foothill Drive way above the lake, and we didn't include them, so they have an X by their name.
Okay.
And then for the purposes of the petition, we also figured it would be one signature in essence per lot. Say if there were 6 people that own the lot, we didn't think we'd want all 6 votes to count. It would be like one signature per lot. So the P means the lot sign and P2 means co-owner sign.
Okay.
So you knew there were other people signing, but that basically it was per lot is the P. And then if there were co-owners that didn't sign, I put a slash. And then otherwise it was empty if they didn't sign. So that we wouldn't count too many lots, because we had to use that list to count how many lots and how many signatures and how many non-signatures. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
very helpful to me. I'm like
Okay.
trying to interpret.
I know, I
I'm
knew
like,
it would be
just ask.
confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And is there currently people that are doing the wake surfing?
No, there's none. We, one of our members, Carl Karst, had read about wake surfing. I honestly didn't know anything about it until Carl brought it up, but he has known something about it and is actually, I think his son has done it. And so he became concerned about the possibility, because we do have properties on Caribou that rent out on the weekends. So, and a lot of times those people will come up from the cities. And we were concerned about that because of the potential damage that one wake boat could do on a weekend on Caribou. So this is kind of proactive.
Right, okay. Okay. All right, and so our purpose today is to actually set the public hearing regarding this, as I understand it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, please.
I guess this is a question for our administrators. So we set a public hearing and we noticed that in the newspaper. How do all of these property owners know we're doing this?
That's a great question, and it also reminds me that there's another aspect of this that I should have mentioned. And so, once the public hearing is set, I mean, it will be noticed, it'll be printed in the News Herald. And I gathered that the association will contact its membership to let them know about it, so that folks can participate if they want to. I think those would be the primary means of notifying people. The other thing I wanted to mention just concerns the county board's role in all of this and who makes the final determination on whether or not a ban is established. And the way that works is the county's role is to set a public hearing to gather public feedback on the proposal. Once that is done, then the board can vote to support the proposal, but the ultimate decision to ban wakeboard surfing on Caribou Lake would be the MDNR commissioners. So,
Yeah, this would go to the DNR, and then the DNR, I don't know exactly what the process is, but I presume the process would be for the DNR then to give notice and have a public comment period, and they have 120 days then within which to make their decision. So the ultimate thumbs up and thumbs down is with the DNR.
Very good. Okay, thank you. As you said, we've learned a lot about this topic. Good. All right, any further comments or questions? Please, Commissioner.
Just thank you for being proactive, and you'll be
Yeah.
ready for next season.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make the motion to set a public hearing on Tuesday, October 11th at 9 a.m. for the purpose of receiving public comments regarding a proposed ban of wakeboats and wakeboat surfing on Caribou Lake.
Very good. We have a motion. I will second the motion. And any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No one is opposed, so that motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, Administrator Yorko, we get to decide.
all right, we will move on to the next item. As we indicated earlier in the meeting, so this is the Economic Development Authority's proposed FY23 budget. You all heard about that at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week. After that, there was some discussion about the budget. I had a chance to speak with Commissioner Hawkins yesterday. Had a really great conversation about some of her concerns. And so I think there's a need for clarification of some of the components of the budget, and specifically how the EDA's budget relates to that of the Superior National Golf Course. Excuse me. So we want to talk through those items. And so I guess, Commissioner Hawkins, I'm not sure. We have this proposed budget. We still have questions that need to be answered. I'm not sure what your pleasure is in terms of how we move forward on this today.
Well, I'm willing to make a motion to approve a budget of $200,000 for the EDA, tentative budget for the EDA for 2023. Auditor Powers has informed us we have the ability to increase that at a later time, and I would be open to that possibility once we get all our questions answered. So,
And
Mr.
so,
Chair, I'm willing to make that motion for $200,000.
and since Brady is momentarily not with us. I'd like him to weigh in
To
on
weigh in,
that.
I think that's a good idea.
So,
Mr. Powers?
excuse me. Sorry, Brady.
No, sorry. Somebody else who didn't get my emails. I'll be answering questions all day.
That's how it works,
So-
unfortunately, when the email turns against you.
Yeah.
So we were having the discussion just generally about the EDA budget and the concerns that have been brought forward. And we actually had a motion put forward to approve a $200,000 budget for the EDA. We have not asked for, well, to keep it within the proper guidance, we should ask, we have a motion on the table to approve a $200,000 budget, or, yeah, for the EDA for the year 2023. Do we have support for that? Do we have support? Okay, we have no support for that, so that motion does not carry forward. So we'll continue the discussion.
And so if, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, please.
Backing up just a little bit, Auditor Powers, Commissioner Hawkins made the motion to approve a $200,000 budget with the understanding that the board could later increase that budget if needed. And that was based on conversation that we had last week. And so I just wanted to confirm that that is the case. So if the board sets a budget lower than the one that's being requested today, there would be an opportunity in the coming weeks and months to adjust that upward.
Yeah, in the statute, of course, we cannot increase ours, and city cannot, et cetera, but there's an exception there for special taxing districts, which is the EDA, the hospital, and Arrowhead Regional Development Commission in Cook County. They all have that ability to increase that levy at a later date before the end of the year. So, yeah, that would be, yeah, expected.
And just so that I understand, when you came up with the amount that you were proposing, what was that based on?
Previous history, current operating budgets without, well, there, I guess it would be a little bit of a cushion for projects, but that's where, that is enough to run the EDA based on the information we have received as currently operating.
I see, because it looks to me like they were requesting for 2023, $295,000. And so,
Well, we could lower it even more, but I'm willing to, that was a compromise, I thought.
I understand.
So-
Okay. And did that take into account what we didn't or don't have the information? Because I understand you were looking to get information on any revenues or things coming in from Superior National Golf Course?
I don't have that information, so I can't
Can't say.
tell you
Okay.
exactly
All right.
where.
So that
what's
didn't
happening.
factor into it?
Nope.
Okay.
And can I point out one thing? If it was based on what it says here is the EDA levy, so it should also include what is called the GM levy, because that's part of their levy.
Right.
They
they're-
like to separate it when they do their books, but in fact, it is part of the EDA levy. So you have to look at those two together.
So that would be a total of $355,000, the request, then, as I see it. The $60,000 and the $295,000.
That was in some confusion, I think, as to whether that was included.
That's why we need to just nail all
Yeah.
this down.
I understand. Our problem is, though, that we have to put, for something, as I understand it,
Yeah.
we need to set something. This is our last meeting before this has to be set.
And that's where I was just, okay, picking kind
Picking
of
a number, okay.
picking a number.
Okay.
Certainly willing to go lower if you think you want to go lower.
Yeah, given their past levies, I would think that the 295 would be a reasonable, I think that would be a reasonable compromise for what I know currently, but. of
And
course,
that would
this
be
is subject-
inclusive of the Grand Marais
Yeah.
portion? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I mean, the other thing is it could be adjusted downward as
Yes,
well as upward.
absolutely.
So the number we set today is really open for further discussion, clarification more than anything. It sounds like we just don't have all the information we need to make the decision.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess I would make a motion to approve an EDA levy total of $295,000, subject to change as we gain more information. That is my motion. Do we have any support for that motion?
I can support that, since it's always like a levy, you can't go higher, but we can go lower. So we have a figure.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what we need to set today.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, based on the feedback from Auditor Powers, $295,000. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Please.
I just need a
please.
second to
Yeah.
ponder
No,
how I want to
That's fine.
move forward. So I just like to be in a position of a little more, guess what, we need this information now. And sometimes I think if a lower number is set, it makes people act faster. So that's my hesitation of, I'm not saying I wouldn't support 295 at the very end. So just be clear.
I appreciate that.
I think it's extremely important we get more detail. So, all right, I've had time to think. Sorry, answer me.
All right. So we have a motion to approve $295,000 for 2023 EDA levy and support. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, that motion carries.
All right. Just a few other items to report on this morning. We have gotten back the preliminary data for our compensation study. As a reminder, there was a process in which we created a working group made up of folks from different parts of the organization. All three bargaining units were represented. We had a director, a supervisor, and then we also had Commissioner Mills as your board liaison to that group. Had really lengthy, well-considered conversations about what factors should go into selecting comparable counties. And we ended up with a set of around 20 counties that we're looking at. The numbers have come back, and the working group has not yet had a chance to look at them. And so I don't want to speak in detail today about what those numbers are. What I can share with you is that there are some areas where we appear to be lower than the market. There are some positions and departments where we're not below market. And generally, that relates to the tenure of people in those positions. So obviously, if you've been here a long time, you've gotten all your steps, you've gotten longevity, you're going to be pretty high compared to the market, or at least near the middle of the pack. But where we do have deficits are in positions where we have more new people who are just starting out. We compared not only actual pay, but we compared, of course, pay ranges with other counties. And we tend to be toward the lower end of those pay ranges. That is to say, our starting pay tends to be closer to the lower end of counties for those ranges. And so what we're doing, we're going to be setting a meeting of the working group here in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, I'm going through to see, we pulled in some metro area counties, and that was a result of having selected housing costs and rent as two important metrics, because we know that those are high in Cook County, and we know that they present a burden for our staff. And that had the effect of pulling in some of those metro counties. Now, we know that we're a much smaller organization than Hennepin or Ramsey counties. We know that our budget is much smaller, our overall resources are less, and so I'm not going to suggest at all that those should be the areas that we focus on. excuse me, but I think it is important to look at those areas insofar as they have housing and rent costs that are more comparable to Cook County. What I'm doing right now is sorting out the metro area counties from the outstate counties to see how those two compare. And what I'm seeing initially is that the outstate counties tend to have lower pay ranges. And in many respects, those counties are more like Cook County in terms of population size and budgets. And so I think where this is probably going to go is we will look at those larger counties, but maybe focus a little bit more on the smaller counties that are more like us in terms of budget. That's going to be my proposal to the working group. You know, it's a Democratic group, so my vote counts for no more than anyone else's. But the idea is for the working group to review the data and come up with some recommendations that it can make to this board about any adjustments that we might want to make to our pay tables. So that's where we are. It's exciting to have the data. It's a lot to sort through. It's complex, right? For certain positions, we have fewer comps than others. Every county pretty much has a county administrator or coordinator or manager. Not every county has a public information officer, so that pool of comps is much smaller. And likewise for other positions. There's some some counties that just don't have all the positions that we have. So that's another variable to consider when you have fewer comps. How much, how do you weight that? We're gonna have to look at that. So that's kind of where we are in that process. Really excited to get the working group back together to have that conversation and to figure out the recommendations that we'll want to make to this board. And so I realize that's a lot of information, and you no doubt have questions about it, so I'm happy to entertain those right now if you do.
Any questions?
Yes.
I have one. Longevity factor, when we instituted that here in Cook County, it was to encourage people to stay with the county because it's a good job, it's a good place to work. I want to know how many other counties that we're looking at for comparables also have that, because I think that plays a factor in your wage range. You can't just look at that without factoring in, well, you get every 5 years, or you're going to get a raise just because.
Right. And that's a great question, Commissioner. I don't have the answer off the cuff, but I'll get that for you so we can consider that.
Yeah, I think you have to take all of those things into account when you're trying to normalize, I guess, how you look at all the data. That's why it gets to be complex as you reach this point. Okay. Other questions?
One other what I wrote down here. When we're talking about fewer comps, because other counties don't have that position, will we as a board get to see that, which jobs, or is this just committee level?
No, it's everything is open to you and the public, frankly. Once we want to have the working group look at the information first. But yeah, we'll make that public. It's public data. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing the further information after the group gets to sit down and make a decision on the recommendation to the board. That's going to be a key thing, but I have confidence the group has worked well to this point in making difficult decisions, working through those things. So I really do look forward to the outcome of that. Okay.
Right. The next thing I wanted to mention is regards the capital improvement plan. We have our consultant, CRBPS, coming back this week. They'll be here, in fact, tomorrow. To survey the remaining buildings that they didn't look at the last time they were here about a month ago. Two things to highlight there. We know that the law enforcement center and the courthouse are two buildings where we have the biggest space constraints. And so I've arranged for the consultant to sit down with myself, the Director of Public Health and Human Services, Allison McIntyre, and also Sheriff Pat Eliason, to talk about the space constraints that they're running up against and to see what solutions we can start to identify for addressing those needs. You may recall the last time that we went through this process, there was a proposed Well, there were a couple of different proposals involving expanding space for public health and human services. Excuse me. One of those, I believe, was up at the corner of Fifth Avenue West and the Gunflint. There's another proposal to maybe site something at the overflow parking lot across the street here. There are no foregone conclusions about where this conversation is going to go. There could be a reallocation of existing space. There could be, I think at the law enforcement center, there are some really severe constraints. I mean, they're processing evidence in the lunchroom because they don't have adequate space to do that kind of work where it should be done. And so the Sally Port is too small. When that building was built, ambulances were smaller. They're now larger, and they can't really fit into that space very well. And then we don't really have adequate desk space for deputies. So those are some real needs. And we, as you've heard before, we are cramming 2 people to an office and upstairs. That's not really good from a business standpoint, from privacy standpoint. So there are a lot of things that we need to explore. And we also need to have a conversation about how remote work can help us alleviate some of those space needs. So that's going to be part of the discussion as well. So no preconceptions about where that conversation is going to end up. We need to consider all the issues and look at all the options for addressing needs. The other thing that bears mentioning is in the last census, we had 5,600 people in Cook County, which exceeds the previous forecast for 2040. And the rate of growth that we've seen in the last couple of years is really above and beyond what we experienced previously. And currently, there are no signs that that's going to slow down. So as the county grows, we need to be prepared to provide a level of service that a larger population may demand. And so that's another part of the conversation. So a lot on the table, a lot to chew on, but our expectation is still, and I've been checking in with CRBPS to make sure that we can complete this by the end of the year, which has been our goal. I've been assured that we're still on schedule to get that done. As part of that, and before the study's actually completed, though, there will be an opportunity for the public to participate in open house meetings to talk about what we found, what the needs are, and to get public input on a final plan for moving forward. And I think that's really important because I think that step was missed the last time we did this, and the consequences of that were not great. So giving the public a chance to see what we're looking at, see all the information, provide feedback, I think is going to be really important. And so for anyone who's listening right now, we'll be advertising dates once we have them, probably sometime in the first part of November, I hope, for those public open houses. So, any questions about the CIP update?
No, just excited to see these longer-term items.
Mm-hmm.
We had told folks we were going to bring these to closure this year, and it appears that's exactly what we're going to do. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see what what we get.
Indeed.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay.
So the next thing I had on my list this morning is November is right around the corner, and looking at our first, it is, yeah, I know, right? Anyway, so we've got a bit of a conundrum for our first business meeting in November because it falls on Election Day. And the last time for the primary, we just moved up to the courthouse, but guess what? There's a trial going on. So this board is homeless for our first meeting of November. In April, was that the 8th? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So we need to figure out an alternative, and I think probably, the only other space that we have that would be appropriate for this would be the community center.
Election.
Oh, elections.
Also, yeah.
How about out on the courthouse lawn
What about City Hall?
or City Hall?
They
We
have internet capabilities there?
We could do that. I'll check with the city administrator on that. Yeah, and I think we had talked about that previously.
That would be your option, or not have a committee of the whole
in November and just hold a regular meeting?
That would be another idea. I'd rather stick to our regular schedule and just change the location.
Yeah,
If the
because
city-
then that would be 2 months in a row, then November and December without the committee of the whole.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yep.
but I think the option for city, the city's space, if that's available.
I will check with the city administrator on that.
Right.
Or maybe even higher ed, they also have internet capabilities there.
Good point. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we'll look into those options, and I'll have additional information at the next business meeting.
Good, thank you.
All right, and that is all I had, I believe, for this week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to employee concerns, commissioner concerns. Do the commissioners have any reports or meeting updates? Yes, Commissioner
Yes, thank
Storer?
you. Well, there's two committee meetings that I attend twice a year. And physically, I haven't been there for 3 years. So I decided maybe it was time to go, which is the Northeastern Consortium, Housing Consortium. That consists of 5 counties, so Coach and all the way over here, Lake and Itasca. But the basic story that I'm telling you right now is that this consortium will have $1.7 million to work with from ARPA money. And there is a coordinator from St. Louis County that's working on submitting something from each of the counties so that each can get a portion of that money. I don't know where we're all going to end up, but it's kind of nice to know that we'll end up with something.
Yeah.
Our county is quite different in that most of the other counties are dealing with homelessness. They're dealing with, like in Cooch County, they're dealing with turning a motel into a place for people to reside that don't have other places as options. St. Louis County, or Itasca County, the same thing. Yes, and St. Louis, so we're kind of lucky in a way that we don't have that. Our main objective here is workforce housing. And so our next meeting will be in February. We're hoping that the coordinator will be able to submit to HUD that this is how we're going to use the money. And they've asked for input from that. So I'll be thinking about how we could have a little input too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other reports or meeting updates? No?
No.
Okay.
I just want to note,
Sure.
our AMC district conference is not on our meetings to note, so I just want to make sure that gets noticed.
That's correct. And for the public, that meeting is occurring up at Grand Portage. That will be Thursday, October 13th from 8 a.m. until noon. Sorry about the
Thank you.
omission. Thanks for
No,
mentioning
I
that.
noticed that this morning. Ooh,
Yeah,
I'll
no, it's
remember we
good.
get that out there.
Yep.
Right.
Other meetings to note are the Truth and Taxation meeting on Tuesday, November 29th at 6 p.m. here in the Commissioners' Room. And then the Commissioners will be going to Bloomington on December 4th through the 7th for the AMC Annual Conference. Our recognition of staff, we have the new hire that was on the consent agenda, Laura Nelson, at Public Health and Human Services, social worker. We welcome her. And any other items for the good of the group today? Otherwise, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Support.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.